When people talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, it often goes like this. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a beloved classic. The Secret of the Ooze is a love it or hate it entry. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 is almost universally disliked, and then people will jump to the 2014 Michael Bay-produced reboot, which received a fair amount of positive reviews, as well as a good dose of internet bile. Although between 3 and the reboot stands the often forgotten entry in the series, the 2007 computer-animated film titled simply TMNT. Even though it's animated as opposed to the previous films being live-action, it was a direct sequel. With Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 in 1993 not going over so well, the studio decided to put an end to the film series, despite the fact that the cartoon and the comic book were still going strong. In the early 2000s, the popularity of the Turtles was on the rise thanks to the success of the new animated series. Golden Harvest, the company that owned the film rights to the franchise, let their ownership expire. Mirage, the independent comic company founded by TMNT creators Eastman and Laird, joined up with Imagi Studios and picked up the film rights in order to make a 4th film in the series that would be completely computer animated instead of live action. Peter Laird, one of the creators of the Turtles, co-produced the film with Warner Brothers. Since Laird was one of the producers, he had more to do with the making of the film this time around than he had with the previous 3. They started looking for a writer and agreed on Kevin Monroe, a self-proclaimed fan of both the comics and the movies. Monroe had previously worked on video games and animation, and felt he was the right guy to direct the new film. He set up a meeting with Laird to prove he was the one to direct the film. He had dinner with him and brought his copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 for Laird to sign. Laird signed it with a drawing of Raphael, saying, "Dear Kevin, make a good movie, or else," which was how he found out he got the job. The movie had a budget of $34 million, which made it the most expensive film in the series to date. That's nothing compared to the $125 million reboot. Even though this was a sequel, it had been 14 years since the last Turtles movie, so Monroe wrote the film in a way to reintroduce the characters to the audience. He wanted to make a film that wouldn't confuse the new audience, while at the same time keeping longtime fans happy. Monroe worked with Laird on the story to make sure that they were hitting all the right notes. Some early ideas included the gang going into space, and another where Raphael died, but thankfully they were shot down. They finally decided to have the story focus on the family aspect of the group, to start the film with the dynamic fractured, but to have them pull together in the end. They want to include more character development, but also not to skip out on the action sequences, especially since the computer animation enabled them to do more than they were able to before. With the Shredder dead, or so they thought, Monroe took this opportunity to introduce the invincible villain Winters and his generals. In the beginning of the film, Winters used a device to make him immortal. Unfortunately, this unleashed 13 monsters into the world and turned his generals to stone. In current times, Winters resurrected his generals and is using them to trap the monsters he unleashed. Each of the monsters is based on famous creatures of legend. Everything from Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, Cyclops, Gargoyle, the Jersey Devil, and Vampire Bat. With Shredder not in the movie, they still wanted to be sure the Foot Clan had a presence. So they had the Foot now led by Karai, who may or may not have been related to Shredder. The film doesn't say. The movie had an incredibly solid voice acting cast. Chris Evans as Casey Jones, Sarah Michelle Gellar as April O'Neil, Ziyi Zhang as Karai, Patrick Stewart as Winters, and Lawrence Fishburne as the narrator. Legendary actor Mako was the voice of Splinter. In 2006, he was on a panel at the San Diego Comic-Con to announce his role as Splinter. Sadly, he died the very next day. The animators designed the diner cook to look like Monroe, so he could have a cameo in the film. The character was voiced by Kevin Smith. The Turtles were voiced by Mitchell Whitfield as Donatello, James Arnold Taylor as Leonardo, Mikey Keeley as Michelangelo, and Nolan North as Raphael. For additional voices, they brought in major talent like Billy West, John DiMaggio, Kevin Michael Richardson, Jim Cummings, Phil Lamar, and Jennifer Hale. To have a more natural flow with the dialogue amongst the Turtles, Monroe had the 4 leads record their banner in the studio together, as opposed to recording separately. In the case of the Leo Raph fight, the 2 actors were in the studio yelling back and forth at each other, and it made the sequence that much more intense. There was a subplot in the film that focused more on Casey Jones' character, but it was cut for time. Things were moving along smoothly, but the studio of course tried to interfere. They thought it would be a good idea to change the personalities of the Turtles as a way to liven up an old property. Monroe fought back and kept each of their distinct personalities the same as they had been. I heard some people complaining about having April fighting alongside Casey and the Turtles. Why would this be an issue? She's dating a martial artist and her friends are ninjas. Wouldn't it make more sense that she decided to learn how to fight? Besides, it's not like this is the first time she's been shown kicking ass. Just look at her solo series from 1993. While the director wanted to keep the tone closer to the original movie, with less cowabunga like parts 2 and 3, he still managed to sneak in some subtle but funny things, as well as a few references. In Splinter's lair, there's a painting of Master Yoshi. When the generals are walking slowly towards the screen, that was an homage to The Right Stuff. When the group's fighting the Foot Clan, Casey belts out this line,
2 minutes for high sticking!
Which was one of his lines from the first movie. Since the Turtles became synonymous with pizza, especially in the cartoon, he made sure to have various pizza boxes all over their home. As a nod to the bizarre toppings from the cartoon, the Turtles are seen eating breakfast pizza one morning, which was pizza covered in cereal. The movie ends with,
Defend, protect, and fade into the night.
Which was very similar to the text at the end of the first comic. Early in the film, Mikey's shown working kids' birthday parties. He always brought home leftover cake for Splinter. In the Turtles' home, there's an arcade game that features the character Zeus from Imagi's TV show, Zentrix. Near the end of the film, Splinter is placing some items on various shelves. On the shelves is Shredder's helmet, staff, and gauntlets, a mask from the Foot Clan, the Ooze canister from Part 2, the Time Scepter, Norinaga's armor and helmet, and the Turtles' armor from Part 3. Mouser parts, Splinter's robe, and a Triceraton helmet. Raphael says the last line of the movie,
Oh, I love being a turtle.
Which was in each of the previous films. When Raph is fighting the Jersey Devil, there was a part where the refrigerator falls on it. Due to an audio error, the music cuts out, and all we hear is the whimper from the monster. Monroe thought it was so funny he left it in the movie. The inspiration for Winters was to make him look like a James Bond villain. For the Mayan War sequence, the animators had 999 characters on screen fighting. For the fight at the end of the movie, there was 250 Foot Clan soldiers. Mikey's snoring was improv by Keeley. After more than 2 years of work, TMNT is released into theaters on March 23, 2007. It opened in the top spot with $24.5 million, but it quickly dropped off and ended its run making only $95 million worldwide. Unfortunately, since the movie was only a modest success, the series was put back on hold. I'm not sure why the film didn't do better and why it's so overlooked. They nailed everything that made the movie series so popular in the first place and added to it. The animation was well done, and while I personally would have preferred them sticking with live action, I can understand why they went in this direction. To do a live-action version of the same script would most likely have tripled the budget. Because of the stylized look of the animation, it still looks good. The fight sequences were well choreographed and incredibly impressive, especially when you consider that this is a small studio and not Pixar. It's really a shame this didn't do better. Monroe was getting ready to reintroduce Shredder into the sequel, and was planning on doing the story arc from City at War from the comics for the third movie. I would have loved to have seen both of those. If you're a fan of the Turtles and you skip this one, you really should give it a shot. If you saw it and didn't like it at the time, check it out again. I think it's one of those movies that has actually improved with age. I was talking to my friends over at the channel Reckless Eating, and since they're big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans, I thought I would issue this challenge to them. Eat some of the worst pizza, as inspired by the cartoon. And yes, I am aware that the Angry Video Game Nerd already did this. Anyway, have at it, guys.
Skilly bebop, we rock steady over kicks and snares. So what you scared for, unprepared for?
Okay, that was just weird. I mean, first the foot, then that hideous monster.
Yeah, it looked like your mom, dude.
Yeah, that would make her your mom too, doofus.
Yeah, whatever.
Hey everyone, I just want to remind you, I have a Patreon set up. If you like the show and would like to help keep me going, even $1 a month would make a difference. I would really appreciate it. I've got some cool rewards set up, so check it out. Thanks a lot.